Worried about letting someone else pick out the perfect avocado for your perfect impress them on the third date guacamole? Well, good thing Instacart shoppers are as picky as you are. They find ripe avocados like it's their guac on the line. They are milk expiration date detectives. They bag eggs like the 12 precious pieces of cargo they are. So let Instacart shoppers overthink your groceries so that you can overthink what you'll wear on that third date. Download the Instacart app today to get free delivery on your first 3 orders, while supplies last. Minimum $10 per order. Additional terms apply.
Hi, everybody. Sharyl Attkisson here. Welcome to another edition of Full Measure After Hours. In today's podcast, I recently interviewed Donald Trump at his Mar-a-Lago home in Florida. Everybody wants to know how he was after 2 assassination attempts in a row and a very busy time campaigning. Well, I thought he was relaxed, upbeat, and very confident. I've interviewed him quite a few times. And he answered a few questions that I'm pretty sure he's never been asked before. By the way, I've also asked for an interview with Kamala Harris, as I repeatedly did for Joe Biden over the years, but was never successful in convincing Biden to sit for an interview. So far, Harris has not responded. I hope she will agree soon. Here's my interview with Donald Trump. President Trump, thank you for agreeing to an interview less than 7 weeks before the election.
Thank you.
Harris and her campaign have called you an existential threat, a danger, and said that you will be a dictator. And after the second attempt on your life in a row, afterwards, Hillary Clinton said, "You're a danger to the country and the world." Do you blame that kind of rhetoric in any way for inspiring assassination attempts, or do you think it's completely unrelated?
Well, I do, and a lot of people say that. But more importantly, it's really just the opposite. They are a danger. They're destroying our country. They're allowing millions and millions of people to come into our country that shouldn't be here, people from jails and people from gangs that are all over there, like Caracas in Venezuela. Their crime is down 72%. You look at what's happening all over the world. And I'm not just talking about South America. I'm talking about prisons are being emptied all over the world. They're dumping them into the United States. Criminals are being taken off the street in cities and places all over the world. They're being dumped into the United States. Mental institutions are being emptied out into the United States. They are a threat to democracy. What they're doing to our country, they're poisoning our country. They're poisoning it. And you can take a look in Ohio, what's happening. You can take a look at Aurora in Colorado and see what's happening. But those are 2 that have been in the news. You have hundreds of little towns and cities that are being taken over by migrants, or at least being horribly affected by migrants. We have 21 million, at least 21 million. They have a lower number. They say 16 million, whether it's 16 or 21, but I think it's much more than 21. And they've come into our country, and they're tough, and they're nasty, and we're going to have to do something about it, and fast, or we're not going to have a country left. And they're the ones that are the threat to democracy.
If elected, you will arguably be the most targeted president in American history, whether we're talking about foreign threats or domestic threats. Does it change how you can govern? If the Secret Service, or some people say they can't guard you effectively at a static golf course, how can they guard you on an overseas trip?
Well, I think we just have to do what you have to do. You know, the only ones that really are trouble are consequential presidents. So in that way, it's a very nice honor. But it's true. I mean, I was a very consequential president and would certainly be, and maybe even more so this time, because I understand the system. I understand countries. I understand who rips us and who doesn't. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't have a clue. They don't even know what's happening. And I think that I will feel safe. I think I'm going to feel safe.
Are you ever scared?
Excuse me?
Are you ever scared?
I can't be scared, because if you're scared, you can't do your job. So I just can't be. I have thus far had somebody protecting me, because you almost think it couldn't have just been 2 times. I mean, 2 times. If I go another 300 or 400 yards walking, which I would have been there in a few minutes, right? Probably 15 minutes. Nasty things could have happened, would have happened. But We had a very good Secret Service agent that spotted a rifle coming out of a very, very dense group of trees and foliage and plants, saw the rifle, and he started shooting. He didn't talk, he shot. And then they caught him with the help of a woman, by the way, that got the license plate, and they were able to get him in a high-speed chase down a highway. That was one. And then, of course, Butler. Everyone knows about Butler. That was a quick turn of the head to show a chart that was a good immigration chart, showed what a good job I did, but that will go down as my all-time favorite chart.
In looking at a possible second term, I think people are curious what specific positions you've discussed giving to Bobby Kennedy, Elon Musk, and Tulsi Gabbard. 3 people, by the way, who were Democrats, or in the case of Musk, I don't know, at least supported Democrats. What specific positions do you see them holding?
And we have a lot of other Democrats that have come aboard and will come aboard. Bobby will do great on health and on the environment.
But does that mean like Health and Human Services?
No, it doesn't mean anything. It means it could be, but I didn't make deals with anybody because it's not appropriate to do it at this. It's too early. But it's getting to be that time, isn't it, when you think we have just a short while to go? It's amazing. But a short while in my life is an eternity. So we'll see what happens. But Bobby's a really... what he's done on healthcare over the years. I mean, I've known him for a long time. And with him, it's eating what you eat, what chemicals you put in your body. I mean, he's been fighting for this for years. He looks at other countries where they don't use chemicals or they use much less than we use. And the people are healthier than they are in the United States, which is not that healthy a country. Also environmentally, and I understand the environment, I think, as well as anybody, but I also want to have the greatest economy. We had the greatest economy ever, and we're going to have the greatest economy again, even better. We're going to bring back the auto business. We're going to bring back a lot of businesses into our country that nobody thought would have been possible. Now they think it would have been. And what I did during my term, I had the greatest economy in the history of our country. I think in the history of the world. There's never been such production that we had. And I'll be able to do it again, and I think very quickly. One of the assets we have is we have more liquid gold, meaning oil, etc., under our feet than anybody else, than any other country, including Saudi Arabia and Russia. And we were energy independent just a short while ago. We'll be energy independent, but we'll actually be energy dominant again. And we're going to make a lot of money. We're going to pay off debt. We're going to pay down debt. And we're going to do things that nobody would have thought possible. But Bobby's great. Tulsi has always been good from the standpoint of common sense. She's like a common sense person. I've watched her for a long time on shows. I've known her a little bit. And it was a great honor when we got her. She's, you're right, she was a Democrat and popular, too, in Hawaii. And she will be terrific.
And Elon Musk?
Well, Elon is Elon. I mean, Elon is... he's endorsed me very powerfully. He feels this is the most important election we've ever had. And as you know, he probably has a couple of other things to do. But
he's indicated he might be willing to help with like government waste type issues.
What he will do is, and the thing that we talk about more than anything else is exactly that. It's costs. He's a big cost cutter. He's always been very good at it. And I'm good at it. But Elon, I'll tell you what, he will go in and he'll say, this is what you have to do. You have to do this. He is so into that. He feels there's so much waste and fat in this country. And he's right. He's 100% right. And he's been just great. He's given me ringing endorsements, even though I disagree with him a little bit on the electric car. But he agrees with me from the standpoint that not every car should be electric. They have an electric mandate that will put Detroit and every other automaker out of business entirely within 2 years. And I'm going to terminate that immediately. That'll be in the first day. I'll terminate it. And we want electric cars, but we want really to have all cars. You have hybrids, you have everything. You have gas-powered cars. We have gasoline, more gasoline than anybody else. We want to use it. Right now, they're mandating electric cars. They don't go far. They're very expensive, and they're going to be built in China. They're all going to be built in China. And what the auto workers, the union, has done is just a disgrace. We've lost 50% of our business over the period of 25 years. A lot of it went to Mexico. A lot of it went to China. It went all over the world, Japan. It went all over the world. and we're going to get it back. We will be at a level that nobody would have thought possible with automaking. And I'm going to cut fuel prices in half within 12 months so that, because the energy costs are so high, the biggest problem, and you can see this even in polling, that people have is everything's too expensive. Because under Harris or Biden or both, you can call it any way you want, under this administration, the costs have gone out of control. People cannot afford it. If I cut energy, and I'll be able to cut it in half within 12 months, if I do that, the world that we live in will be a different place.
On COVID, you frequently say at your rallies and so on that you don't feel like you get enough credit on COVID. But by nearly every assessment, the CDC failed miserably at job one. And yes, the COVID vaccines were developed in record time, but as we now know, they don't prevent infection, illness, or transmission, and they have very potentially serious side effects. Do you think that maybe they were approved too fast? And in hindsight, based on what we know now, what would you have done differently?
Well, I think they're doing studies on the vaccines, and we're going to find out, and it'll come out one way or the other. But I really had a mandate to get vaccines done, and I got them done very quickly in record time. The Democrats love it. You know, the Democrats love it, and the Republicans don't. It's very interesting. The vaccines, they love it. I have a friend of mine who said to me, why don't you talk about the vaccine, what you did with the vaccine? He's a Democrat, but I'm sure he voted for me. He said, what you did was the most incredible thing that any president has ever done. You've saved hundreds of millions of lives all over the world. And this was just recently, very smart guy. He said, I don't understand why you don't talk about it. And I don't talk about it. But if you go to Pfizer, if you go to some of these companies, they have charts and they have all sorts of statistics. And I say, why don't you release those statistics? Let people know. But I don't talk about it. I can say this. The Democrats would love to claim it. The Republicans don't want to claim it. But it'll be determined, I'd say, over the next 12 months. I say this in terms of overall. I think I did an amazing job with COVID. I never got the credit for it. Remember that more people died under Biden-Harris than died under Trump. And they had a much easier time because when it came in here, nobody knew what it was. It came from the Wuhan labs, which I always said, but nobody really knew what it was, where it came from, nothing. They knew nothing. And we got hit. And I got great credit on military. We knocked out ISIS. We rebuilt the military. Great credit on military. Great credit on the economy. I never got great credit on the fighting of the China virus, which is COVID, but we call it the China virus because we like to be accurate. But if you think of what I've done, I took a disaster that came into our shores, that dust flew in from China, and we started making things like the ventilators. We were supplying the whole world with ventilators within a period of 7 months. We took auto factories and started making ventilators in auto factories. We did the gowns, the costume, all of the different things, all of the rubberized products, the masks, everything. And we also had to go because when I took over, the cupboards were bare. We had nothing. We were supposed to have, but we had nothing. And in all fairness to previous presidents, the reason is that nobody really thought a pandemic in this world, in this age, was possible. You remember 1917, we had the great pandemic that people talk about. 100 million people, they say, died. And basically this would have happened here too, and it didn't happen here. I think I did a great job. I think I will not be given credit for it, but there are a lot of people that think I did a really fantastic job on that. Nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew where it came from. And remember, we had far fewer deaths than Biden, and Biden just got the tail end. So we did a good job.
On immigration, which you've mentioned, most people seem to think that you can tighten up the border. And for the untold millions who are here illegally that you referred to, you've talked about a mass deportation program. How is that practically possible? Because a lot of the millions of people have had children here who are American citizens. And don't you think the first time there is an image on television of a family tearfully being told to board a bus, that whole program would end?
That's right. If you take young woman with two beautiful children, and you put her on a bus, and it ends up on the front page of every newspaper. It makes it a lot harder. But your question was, you can or you can't tighten up, because you can. Because if you look at the favorite chart of all time, my favorite chart of all time, the chart I turned to the right, that was an immigration chart. I had the lowest numbers in the history of our border. It's the lowest number of ever, and that included on drugs and everything else coming through, human trafficking, mostly in women. The border was a done deal. It was great, and it was only going to get better. All they had to do is leave, remain in Mexico, and all of the things that I got. We had the best border. We had a horrible border when I took over. So when I took over in 2016, I think I won because of the border. I think it was my main thing. But that border was nothing compared to this border. I fixed the border in 2016. When I ran in 2020, even though I got millions of more votes, and everybody says it, bad things happened. Bad, horrible things happened. So bad for the country. Think of it. If I would have been president, you wouldn't have Russia attacking Ukraine. Would have never happened. You wouldn't have had the oil prices go up, which would have been another reason that wouldn't have happened. But you wouldn't have had that happen. You wouldn't have had inflation. You wouldn't have had the Israeli attack, the attack on Israel on October 7th. You wouldn't have had the most embarrassing day or moment in the history of our country, which is Afghanistan. I was getting out too, but I was getting out with strength, and I was going to keep Bagram. Bagram is one of the biggest air bases in the world, and it's 1 hour away from where China makes their nuclear weapons, and now China has it. We were going to have that. We were staying and we were keeping this massive base, not because of Afghanistan, but because of China. And you wouldn't have had that. I mean, the world would have been a very much different place. We wouldn't have had the Israeli attack. We wouldn't have had the Russian attack with the horror show that's going over in Ukraine. It's a horrible thing. We wouldn't have had inflation, which is a big deal. It's destroying a lot of people. The cost of product is destroying a lot of people. We would have had a much different world today. And we wouldn't have the Middle East blowing up. You know, you heard Viktor Orban, who is from the Prime Minister of Hungary, and a very strong person, a very highly respected. He said, if Trump comes back, everything will stop. Everybody was afraid of Trump. I don't want to use that term, but that's what he said, because I'd rather say respected Trump, but you can take it any way you want. What he said China was afraid of him, Russia was afraid of him, North Korea was afraid of him. There was no problem. And it's true, when I left, there was no problem. After I left, it all fell apart. And we will get it straightened out.
So yes to mass deportation, even of women and
children. So we're going to look at
it
it very closely. The way you phrase it is exactly right. You put one wrong person onto a bus or onto an airplane, and your radical left lunatics will try and make it sound like the worst thing that's ever happened. But we're getting the criminals out, and we're going to do that fast, and we know who they are. And the local police know their names, and they know their serial numbers. They know everything about them. We work with the local police, the local law enforcement, which is great all throughout the country. But we have to look, we have murderers that have been let into our country. They're not going to get better. We have people that are insane, that their mental institutions the mental institutions all over the world have a much lower population, and in many cases, they've been emptied out. The jails are down to much lower numbers, and soon they'll be emptied out. They're emptying out into the United States of America. We're not a dumping ground. We're going to get all of those people out, and we're going to get them out fast. And we have no choice, because that's not sustainable by any country.
Okay, it's time to commit. 2024 is the year for prioritizing yourself. Begin your new smile journey with Byte, and you could start seeing results in just 2 to 3 weeks. Just order your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95 at Byte.com. Byte clear liners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces, plus they offer financing options, accept eligible insurance, and you could pay with your HSA, FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
Hey, Prime members. Have you heard? You can listen to your favorite podcasts ad-free? Good news! With Amazon Music, you have access to the largest catalog of ad-free top podcasts included with your Prime membership. To start listening, download the Amazon Music app for free or go to amazon.com/ad-free podcast. That's amazon.com/ad-free podcast to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
On the economy, which you've mentioned, for our viewers, a dozen eggs under Trump cost no more than $2.08 and as low as $1.46. Under Biden-Harris last month, $3.20.
Yeah.
A gallon of unleaded regular gas under Trump as low as $1.88, never hitting $3. Biden-Harris as high as $5.06, and last month still $3.52. Kamala Harris has been very short on specifics when it comes to economy, other than saying she wants an opportunity economy. What are the specific mechanics of how prices come down? You know, the steps that would be taken in a second term for you.
So, first of all, she can't do an interview. She could never do this interview because you ask questions like, give me a specific answer. She talks about her lawn when she was growing up. This woman is not equipped to be president. She's not equipped to deal with President Xi, who I took in hundreds of billions of dollars with him, and Putin. We had no war with Putin. Remember, and I'm just going to go off just for this, with Bush, they took a lot, Russia. With Biden, they're trying to take everything. With Obama, they took a lot. With Trump, Russia took nothing. Just remember that. You know, it's a little chart. But what happened, and when you look at what took place, was so sad. When they took over, they cut the oil way down, and oil started going through the roof. It was going to go to $10 a gallon. It was going to go to numbers that nobody's ever seen. And so they went back to the Trump drilling. They said, let it go back. Oh, they made it. That was the only good thing, but they stopped. Because I would be there, but 4 years later, I would be triple what the number was. Right now, they're just about even where I was. But they only did that because of the fact that they eventually have an election coming up. And you remember at the beginning what happened. That's one of the reasons that Putin went in, because it went to $100 a barrel instead of $40 a barrel. And he could fight all the wars he wants with those kind of numbers because he's a big seller of oil and gas. So what happens is they went back to what I was doing, just said reopen. It wasn't hard. And that's where they are sort of now. Not to the same extent, but sort of now. So the prices went up. They were going through the roof. They were going to set numbers that nobody's ever even thought about before. They went back and they held it. If they win this election, your oil prices will be double, triple, quadruple. They actually want to go to all electric cars. It's insane. They want to have your dishwashers with no water. They want to have almost no water coming out of your shower head, even if you live in an area where there's so much water you don't know what to do with it. They want to have all of this stuff. It's so crazy what they want to do. They're going to destroy lives. They're going to destroy what they have done to this country, and especially in the sense of allowing millions and millions of people come in, because that's something, you know, we can fix the gasoline situation and we can fix the anything you mentioned. Look at, you order a product today and you can't supply chain, you can't get it. You order products, you know, people don't talk about it anymore because the fake news doesn't want to talk about it. But even today, you order a product and I can tell you somebody that orders a lot of different things, and they'll tell you you can't get flywheels, or you can't get, you know, different things for engines, for motors, for bridges, for concrete. You can't get things because the supply chain is still broken. Not quite as bad as it was, but it's still broken. What they have done to this country.
But sir,
all of those
do prices
things
come down magically because it's not them?
They come down with energy and they come down with interest rates. We're going to get, as I told you, we're going to get energy down by 50% in 12 months. We're going to have it. It's going to be a major smash on energy. If you look at the energy for, and I'm not just talking about cars, I'm talking about air conditioning, heating, your basic energy, operating a bakery, operating any kind of a business. It's all having to do with energy. That was where they started wrong. When they cut way back on what I did, and again, just so you understand, they then let it go back to where it was, which was a very smart thing. Otherwise, you would have had, I think you would have had a depression, if you want to know the truth. But energy was rising at a level that nobody had ever seen. And then they said, go back, go back. They were telling people, go back to your wells, go back to drilling, go back to fracking, do whatever you have to do. But if they win, the day after, they're going all the way. They were only doing that because of an election coming up. They're going all the way. It's madness. And what they've done to our country is mad. Men in women's sports, think of it. Men playing in women's sports, and you see how that's working out. The two boxers in the Olympics, they transitioned. They both won the gold medal. They were hurting young ladies and girls that were boxing. They were hurting them. You look where they're taking prisoners, illegal aliens, migrants, and if they want a sex change operation, they want to give it. Kamala Harris, she was more liberal than Bernie Sanders by far, voted the most liberal senator, and our country's not ready for that. She's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist, probably a communist. And our country's not ready for that. Our country can't survive like that. But think of it. A prisoner, a migrant prisoner, wants a sex change operation, they give it. Have we gone totally crazy? But this is the kind of policy we're talking about. You know, one thing I mentioned, it sounds trivial, but it's very important. Kamala said she worked at McDonald's, and it was a big part of her growing up. She never worked at McDonald's. Never worked at McDonald's. It was a lie. And she tells a lot of lies. During the debate, I thought I had a great debate. What happened is I was 3-on-1, and they were correcting everything I said, even though what I said was right. For instance, I said crime is through the roof. They said, David Muir, he said, I have no longer any respect for this guy because he just basically does whatever the people at ABC told him to do. But I said, crime is going through the roof. Now, you don't have to be an expert in crime to know that. All you have to do is take a look. And the migrant crime is adding to it at levels that, wait till you see how bad it gets, unless I'm elected, by the way. Wait till you see how bad it gets. And he said, crime has not gone up. The FBI has given, well, the FBI was a fraud because the FBI didn't add various cities, et cetera, et cetera. And somebody at the DOJ must like me because they released a list right after the debate where I was 100%. Crime has gone through the roof. Murders up 35%.
We're working on that story for Full Measure, by the way, the stats and how they've been changed.
I think it's a great story.
Yeah, it is.
Crime is through the roof. David Muir, by the way, should apologize. But he should apologize for a lot, like bloodbath. She used bloodbath. That was about the auto industry. They made it sound like it was like, blood flowing in the streets. No, the auto industry is not going to exist in our country if I'm not elected. If I'm not elected, I tell you, I spoke yesterday to a very big and prominent Jewish group. I said, if I'm not elected within 2 years, Israel will be obliterated. Nobody did more for Israel than I did. Israel will be obliterated. Many bad things will happen. There's some of the best analysts on Wall Street that say that the stock market's up only for one reason, because they think Trump is going to be elected.
I'm wondering, looking back at you sitting out for 4 years, basically, at least, is there a benefit to that in terms of you being able to see, maybe to regather, regroup, see who you could trust and who you can't trust? Well,
that's a good point, but I'll tell you the maybe bigger point. It would have been easier if I did it, contiguous, to be honest. You have to go a long way back in history to see the one person that was able to do it non-consecutively. But the benefit is, more than anything else, it shows how bad they were. It shows how bad this radical left, liberal, crazy philosophy is with defund the police. They wanted to defund the police. She still wants to defund the police. Anybody that wanted to defund, she was a leader of the defund the police, Kamala. I'd call her Harris, but nobody knows who I'm talking about when I say Harris. They only know, it's a sort of interesting, it's her last name, but nobody knows who I'm talking about. Defund the police, all of these different things. It shows how bad they were. It shows how much they don't work. And I think it makes it much easier for me to do my job. People want us to do the job. They've got to stop crime. They've got to stop crime. You go out for a loaf of bread today and you end up getting mugged, killed, shot. If you look at Chicago, just a short while ago on Labor Day weekend, they had over 100 people shot 17 people died. You don't have numbers like that in Afghanistan and all these other countries we talk about as being unsafe countries. There are no numbers like that. You take a look at Chicago, you take a look at the crime all over the United States. That's why the FBI has to give the real numbers, but the DOJ gave the real numbers, and crime is absolutely out of control. And we're going to do a lot about it. We're going to bring crime back. We're going to make sure, we have a little expression, it's called MAGA. It's called Make America Great Again. That's what we're going to do, because America is not great now.
We've reached the end of our allotted time almost. I have two quick questions that are just sort of one sentence maybe. What are two things you do to stay healthy?
Well, I used to play golf a little bit. That gave me, so I don't know, but it seems to be quite a dangerous sport in retrospect. I try and eat properly. I do the best. And I try and get some. I do, but proper hamburgers. But I like perhaps all of the wrong food. But then I say, does anybody know what the right food is?
You're
I
right
have people
about that.
lecturing me for years. Oh, don't eat this, don't eat that. They're gone. They have passed away long ago.
And
here I am.
Changing.
So I'm not sure I want to make too many changes.
And then, if you're not successful this time, do you see yourself running again in 4 years?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I think that will be it. I don't see that at all. I think that hopefully we're going to be successful. I can say you had mentioned before about the Coliseum in Nassau County in Long Island, and we had 2 nights ago a crowd that even you were shocked by, and I could have sold it out 3 times. This is the size of, just about the size of Madison Square Garden on relatively short notice, a very short notice, filled up with 25,000 or so people. I could have sold it out again and again. And there's something happening. As good as 2016 was, and then we had 2020 where I did much better than I did in 20. I did much better, millions of more votes, as you know. There's never been enthusiasm like we have now. And that's really because they do like me, but they think the other people have done the worst job. I believe that is the worst administration by far in the history of our country. Biden and Harris. That's the worst administration. He's the worst president in the history of our country by far. She is the worst vice president in the history of our country by far, and was acknowledged to be. Everybody knew. 7 weeks ago, they were saying how bad she is. She'll never get it. She'll never get it. And they wanted to be politically correct. They did a coup of Biden. He didn't want to go out. They did it. That was an absolute coup in America. Never happened before. They threw him out, just like you'd throw out a dog. They threw him out, and she took over. And the fake news all of a sudden takes a person that was by far the worst. She cannot answer a question at a news conference. She can't ask. If you sat down with her and asked questions like you're asking me right now, she would be incapable of answering them. And we've had 4 years of that. We don't need 4 years more. President Xi of China respects me. I took in hundreds of billions of dollars that no other president took in anything. Putin respects me. I ended his pipeline in Europe. This guy gets in and he approved it. It was done. Nord Stream 2, nobody ever heard of it before. It's called the biggest pipeline in the world. I ended it. I said, there's no way you're doing it. I ended it. No problem. He comes in and he approves it. We had the worst administration, the worst 4 years. And really, we are in big trouble because we are very close to World War III. And these people have not. This is the same group that worked on Afghanistan. And there's never been an embarrassment like that. They're now dealing with Russia and others and China on nuclear weapons. We are very close to World War III, and this will not be a war like World War II or World War I. We have army tanks going back and forth, shooting at each other. This will be a war like no other. This will be obliteration. And we have incompetent people in the White House. And she is far more incompetent than Joe Biden.
New polls just out as we sat down to do this interview, which some of them look pretty good for you.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Well, I'm honored by it. Rasmussen just came up, and they have me way ahead, and others have me ahead, and in some cases way ahead, especially in the States. I'm honored by it. Look, they're looking at the most incompetent administration, and I think they're also saying that we had 4 great years. When we go back and take a look at those 4 years, that's where people want to be.
Mr. President, thank you for the interview. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Cheryl.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. And if you'd like to watch the TV replay of Donald Trump's interview, you can check it out at fullmeasure.news. If you like the podcast, please leave a great review, share it with your friends, and check out my other podcast, the Sharyl Attkisson podcast. If you haven't already done so, please consider checking out my new bestseller, Follow the Science: How Big Pharma Misleads, Obscures, and Prevails. This book is taking off like fire, but not because the entities that make money off Big Pharma are promoting it, because they definitely are not, but by grassroots and word of mouth. I'm delighted people are finding so much useful information and are buying copies for family and friends. I think it's a terrific gift idea coming up upon the holidays. In short, I help dig into the reasons why we're suffering this chronic health epidemic in our country that our medical establishment seems not to notice, but for the fact that they're shoving new pills and treatments at us that cost a lot of money, but not really getting at the heart of the problem. There's a reason for that, and I have hard data and shocking anecdotes, but also really useful information that can help you get control back of your health. Follow the Science is on sale everywhere. Do your own research, make up your own mind, think for yourself.